tell us about the level design behind the wordless narrative.
So it's a tricky challenge, trying to convey a story through the environments alone. We do a lot through little subtle kind of nonverbal hints in the environment, whether how we prop an area is done a certain way. We always try to kind of allude to something more that's going on in the world. And there's a bunch of them that I unfortunately haven't been seen in any of the footage that we've shown yet, but it's doing a lot to allude to kind of a bigger ecosystem of existing creatures and monsters in the world that exist when you're not around. There's something that has happened before you arrived there, and there's something that will continue to happen after you leave. So it's kind of building on that as a foundation for world building.
I noticed when you go to the lower levels of the game, there aren't any monsters per se. Was that your call?
Are there in like later on?
Or are there any later on?
So in one of the electric dungeon, which we actually showed at, not this PAX, but the last one, there are actually some monsters down in there, but we kind of allude to it as maybe the floor in the upper crust has broken away and some of them have gotten down there. But for the most part, it was meant to be a pretty strong distinction between the upper area and the lower area, where we tend to focus more on the security bots, that we call them, that you'll see in a lot of the dungeons. That's kind of where their domain lies, and the more organic creatures, we tend to keep them up on the surface.
Can you just talk a little bit about what the process is for designing a level? Like, it could just be like something you've already shown, or like something that's in the demo. Like, what was that process like from start to finish?
Sure. So one of the dungeons that we showed 2 PAXs ago, it was we call it a tutorial dungeon. It's where you get your warp glove ability, and from the beginning of that, I had originally sketched it out to try to basically frame, as a new player, when I come into this dungeon, what's the kind of focal point that's going to draw my eye. And I wanted that to be the actual machine that upgrades your arm, that gives you the upgrade. So kind of built it all, the whole level revolved around circling it, going down to it, and working your way back up. So a lot of dungeons in general will start with a high level. Dogs.
Dogs. I'm just going to have a compilation of every interview.
Every time the dog.
It's the dog.
Yeah. So for me personally, it's trying to establish a theme or kind of an idea, or even just a general look for a dungeon before you start building it. Because once you can establish the general feeling that you want players to experience, it's very easy to build off of that. But having the strong foundation for what you want to convey in the area is kind of, at least my starting point personally.
Were there any like particular challenges that you guys faced with, I don't know, coming up with like the base for the world, like the actual design of that? Like, what was the most challenging aspect of that, maybe?
I think one of the more difficult things, we have our distinct zones, which I don't know how much I can necessarily say about, because I don't know how much we've actually unveiled.
You can just say zones.
Yeah, we have our zones, and then we have our overworld, which kind of acts as a buffer. And I think one of the difficult things is kind of balancing the two out and seeing how they play off of each other pacing-wise. Our zones tend to be a bit more denser, maybe a bit more puzzle-heavy, and then the overworld is kind of the refresher after that. You'll have more open fields, things feel a bit more natural out there. So that's just kind of one of the areas that it's a constant balancing act.
What has been your favorite part about designing the World Hub?
The amount of freedom we have. Like we really can build whatever we want in the overworld and in the zones. It's the amount of freedom is actually kind of overwhelming at times. We're far enough in now that everything's very established, but in the beginning it was very much like we have this huge canvas that we can build on, and it's just like, what do you want to do in here?
I think that's good.
It's good.
It's great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.